Okay, so now we're live on the air. This is Flux of Fluxwithit.com. And I have with me Brad of Isla Instruments. Now, Brad is he's been grinding lately. So before I even let him talk or like do anything, I'm gonna give everybody a little bit of information as far as what I know that's been going on, and then he can kind of touch on some stuff. Um, First and foremost, I'm going to talk about Corebots. Even though this stream is about the SP2400, I'm talking about the Corebots just because that's like that's your baby, and you know that's what's been going on. I've been following how much you guys have been knocking that stuff out, and you know I've been following everything from getting the circuit boards from China, the delays that it took you, to you know, the actual production crew, like everything. So you guys have been grinding that out, and you're almost done, right, Brad?
Yep.
You're almost done, right?
Oh, so the whatever. Yeah. Almost. I'm sorry, man.
It's cool.
Right, should we start again?
See, and this is what I'm talking about. Brad's been grinding, so he's kind of half
I
there.
was away with the fairies then for a minute. Sorry.
Yeah. So
No,
it's
I was trying to
okay.
get the YouTube thing up at the same time, and then they both started playing, so I can see the chat
I
in
got
there
you. I got you.
as well. So I'm sorry about that. What was the question?
So basically, what I was saying is like I've been following the whole SP2400 thing, or excuse me, the Chordbot thing, and the process of getting the boards, getting everything going, and you know the hardships of making sure that you
Yeah.
got everything done. But you guys are almost finished, right? Like you guys have been knocking those things out left. I saw huge pallets of them. Like you guys have
Yeah.
been rocking, right?
Well, we really smashed it this time, and I've got a couple of great guys helping me out. We just built this week. We built like 360 in a week between three of us, uh, which as which gets rid of all the backlog. Finally, that's the first time we can actually be at this. They're all sold out though, but we've got rid of the backlog, and sort of the next batch that gets built, we don't have to work quite so hard at, and they'll be in stock finally. But yeah, it's been a hard slog getting all of that brought up to date and everything, but we're there, which I'm happy about.
Yeah. So I mean, as far as the Chordbot is concerned, that is, I mean, that was your first product. So that
Yeah,
was like, you know, a long learning process. And there was a lot of good things that happened during that thing. And
yeah,
a few things that like made you say, okay, I'm gonna rethink how I'm doing that, right?
yeah.
Um, man, how do you feel about the old adage of like, you know, you learn from your mistakes more than your successes?
That's absolutely correct.
And that's not to say that it's not a success because it absolutely is. But
Yeah,
I'm talking more towards you know, the whole, you know, just the whole process. Like creating a product is a pretty involved process on a lot of different levels.
yeah. So when I first went into this with the Kickstarter, I really had no idea how successful it was going to be from the outset. And I was obviously coming out of a studio recording environment and sort of doing music for a living. But I'd always done electronics. It was a first rodeo, and everything was completely new. I had ideas of what I was doing, but I executed a lot of things the wrong way right at the start. I thought we can build all of these circuit boards in house and do everything, and of course that caused delays and stuff like that. So there were some real savage lessons that I had to learn, and you have to at the same time, explain to people why you've been a dumbass and stuff like that. But along the way, if I hadn't have made those mistakes, I wouldn't have learned the lessons that I've learned, and that's dealing with now with overseas manufacturing and local manufacturing, and getting supply chain and everything, stuff like that sorted out. Eventually finding the right suppliers as well, because you've really have to, especially dealing with overseas vendors, you just sort of have to work a lot of it on blind faith, unless you're going to go over there and visit every single factory, which is an ideal world. That's what you need to do and what you should do, and what I will be doing. But I've had to go through several suppliers because they just do things like send you circuit boards in a cardboard box with no protection, like bashed the shit out of by the time they land, and loads of different stuff that you just have to say, right, well, I've learned that lesson. I'm not going to use those guys again. And now I've got some decent, decent suppliers and everything. So you've seen batches start going out much more frequently because in the background there's less issues going on with everything. So definitely, yeah, lessons learned.
Yeah, for sure. So
The hard way. But
but you guys have been cracking it out this weekend, and you kind of so are they all done, or like what's the word on that?
yeah, anyone that's ordered a Chordbot up until about 3 days ago are in my garage. If they about 160 shipped yesterday, that's a full truckload. And so there are a load more shipping boxes that arrive on Tuesday, and then that's it. I'm done with the with the batch up until about 3 days ago. So I think there might be one order or two orders. So
Cool.
yeah,
But that's great news for a lot of people. So I just wanted
yeah,
to kind of I
and for
wanted
me as well,
I didn't even clear that with you or anything beforehand. I
no,
just
that's
wanted to get that
fine.
stuff
No,
out of the way
no,
because
do you know, and that's why all of this has been like people have been talking about, oh, when's the pre-order for this and that and the other, and I'm like, I've got a ton of chord bots to build, and so it's been finishing that at 8 o'clock at night, coming in here working on SP until like 4 o'clock in the morning most nights. So yeah, things hopefully are going to start just easing off a little bit and can concentrate on doing some exciting stuff. There's still a lot of work also going on in the background for Corebots firmware. There's clunkiness in that with file management and MIDI sync and stuff like that. Some issues that we hold our hands up about. SP development, the firmware development, is being done by another guy as well. So, but Chordbot has only got Bill working on it, and obviously Bill's under an extreme amount of pressure, being one guy on his own doing all of that stuff. So, there's a few people out there that are like, oh, you should be fixing Chordbot firmware, and we've promised stuff. It will be coming with its chord sequencer and stuff like that. It just takes a bit of time, and Chordbot and Isla Instruments might not be going forever if we don't release another product. That's the name of the business, right? You have to keep making new products and having new stuff to sell. So SP2400 in some small part will also be funding and accelerating the development of the Chordbot firmware, because that means we can bring more developers in and get stuff, much better. I
yeah, I
hope that
mean
answers that for a few people that have seemed very worried that we're going to abandon Chordbot or abandon the Chordbot firmware development. That's absolutely not the case at all.
yeah, I mean Corebot's actually dope, man. I love what it does in a tactile way. It's pretty cool. What the main thing that I like about it is that I love that touch strip, man. I love
Yeah,
strumming. Strumming is so
yeah,
dope.
you love strumming,
I
don't
actually
you?
use that in my sound design. I use it in my sound design a lot, honestly. Like I've done a lot of sample packs where I've used the Chordbot and I've used the strumming feature, and it lets me do a lot of things that I couldn't have done otherwise. So it's
Yeah.
actually really cool. All right, so let's move on to the SP2400. So this doesn't sound like some ridiculous commercial.
Yeah.
No, so
No, first and
SP2400.
foremost, where's your bottle of whiskey? Did you get another one after you kicked that one over during our last interview?
I was just talking to a buddy of mine about that today, and I believe that was a bottle of rum, so it didn't count. But yeah, I've got this right here. So this is my Four Roses, and if Four Roses ever wants to hook me up, they should. But in the meantime, I'll just say the reason I'm drinking Four Roses is because I can't get Balcones in my state. And I just did actually work on a sample pack for Balcones whiskey. If you can get Balcones in your state, I highly recommend you go get it.
I'm not really a spirit drinker. I'm beer or wine, and
Oh, you'll
my
man up
wine
one
of
day.
choice at the moment
No.
is a rather nice Kirkland Costco offering. It's really
Actually,
good.
I'll be
It's
honest
really
with you,
good
man.
though.
Some of their stuff is actually some of the Kirkland stuff is actually pretty good. Like, not to get too far off topic, but like their whiskey is actually like a variation of Jim Beam. Like that's
Yeah,
actually nicer than the regular Jim Beam.
right.
But I mean, I love red wine too. So
Yeah, I can't handle spirits. I start getting my clothes off and running around and stuff.
Yeah, I did
You
a
don't want that on air.
Balcones actually flew me out to their distillery, and we sampled their entire distillery. Like,
I
we set
saw
up
the
mics
pictures of that.
and
That looked,
sampled everything up. It
yeah.
was really dope, and they're really great people. So I highly recommend that. So let's talk about the 2400 a little bit. And the first thing I want to talk about is you just posted some new videos. So I'm going to let you talk about what's in those videos. And while you're talking about what's in those videos, I'm going to pull up some pictures and stuff. I'm not going to play the whole video on this because the audio quality won't be the same or anything, but I want to pull up some pictures. So please explain what you just posted.
So I just say what I see, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
No. You tell them now what you posted. I'm
Oh,
going to pull that stuff up in a second.
right, yeah. So I mean, that was a video. It was a rushed video that I was doing because we were meant to do this chat yesterday, but of course, Corebots building went over time, so I kind of had to throw that video together yesterday. But essentially, where the firmware is at right now, which is what I explain in the video, with as it is at the moment, it's almost, it's very close to the original unit in terms of what it can do. It's just hasn't got any sequencing capabilities yet. So the audio engine is pretty advanced, and we've actually started adding stuff that the original didn't have. So most notably in that video last night was multi-level mode, which of course was very important to have. And so multi-level mode on the SP2400 will do multi-level, multi-pitch, spreading the sample across all the pads at different pitches that you can change, and also we've got multi-decay, which the original didn't have. Are those my dogs barking or your dogs barking?
They're my dogs. So, yeah, they're a little bit crazy right
now. So yeah, I did that. I did some demos of the filter, and I sort of did another messing around with the pitch algorithm, just demonstrating that. There's also an A/B comparison. There was an A/B comparison demo that I did with my SP1200 and my machine side by side, and it was really interesting, the results. I purposefully did that and sort of mixed up which ones were which. There is a difference. There's a slight difference that I think that by and large, the pitch algorithm sounds way on point, and I think the differences in sonic characteristics are more likely down to the older analog machine. Because in terms of ringing and everything,
I'm showing the June update video right now. Okay.
Right. Okay.
Now
Yeah.
I want to just I'm gonna kind of paraphrase a little bit about what's in the video, because there's some interesting things going on here. So one, this is a really great video for seeing some of the button functions. So if you notice on the left-hand side, you'll see him go through some of the buttons in different modes.
Yeah.
One of the things that I really like seeing is that you showed the chromatic mode across the pads, which was really good.
Yeah.
Then you also showed how you can do your chromatic across the pads and then use your faders to adjust the pitch of each individual pad, which is really useful. That's going to be great.
Well, that's the same. It's very much the same as the original, right?
Yeah. And you also showed the concentric knobs, which is new. You know, that was not on the original, and that's something very cool.
I love concentric knobs, and I don't understand why we don't really see them in anything, because they save space, and especially if you're, manipulating filters and stuff like that, it's more natural, I think.
They're not always cheap, is one thing.
They're not cheap. They are not cheap. They are definitely not cheap.
So I mean that's one of the main things that I think why you don't see companies using them quite as often. But one thing about this that I noticed is you do show some filter sweeping in this, and when you're doing it, it was really smooth with those knobs, and it looked really natural. So that was one of the things that kind of like grabbed me a little bit. I was like, oh, okay, that's dope. Because I was kind of looking at it like, okay, well, how is this going to actually rock when he's doing it? You know, is it going to look musical? Is it going to look like a fun workflow? And I'll say this, go watch his June update video, because as he's showing how the faders are working, how the buttons are working, and how the pads are working, you can tell already it's a very unique workflow that is not, a workflow that we have right now. Like no other sampler is working in this way. And that's what got me excited.
Let me tell you something about this as well, this machine. I fell in with the SP1200 and obviously my machine. that going back to rehashing all of this stuff and bringing it back to myself, it was like, yeah, this is such an easier, it's a definitely more musical way of working. I'm not knocking the MPC type things, but there's so much, and the modern equivalents and stuff. There's so much menu diving and so many options and so many buttons you can press, and then mess something up and get lost. And this thing is like you're up and running with a beat in as quickly as you can assign samples to the pads. You know, it's that way of working. It got dropped, obviously, didn't it? It got dropped, I guess, with the release of the MPC. No one ever looked back to that sort of workflow. And I think maybe that in some small part the industry sort of missed a trick there, and that should, rather than the whole workflow leaning off towards the way that it did, it should have branched. You know?
Okay, hold on. I want to touch on some of the stuff that because I have ADD. I'm going to let the chat know this because I've had videos where people said, "Oh, why does Flux do this or why does he do that? He's an asshole." Blah blah blah. Just
You
so
are.
people know who don't, yeah, people who don't know me very well or don't follow me, you should know this now because I'll make no bones about it. I have rather severe ADD. Diagnosed since I was 7 years old. If you don't like it, don't watch my channel. Deal with it. I'm just letting it be known now. So check
Is that
this
the
out.
whiskey talking?
No, that's not the whiskey. That's the other thing is that people think when I say things like, "Oh, I'll punch so and so in the face,"
I
that's
got punched in drywall.
rarely is it the whiskey talking, because I'm generally speaking just that much of somebody who's that excitable, you know.
Yeah.
And you know, if I'm talking about a developer, I'm saying it in a joking way. If I'm talking about just a general person, I might actually want to punch him in the face. So you know, just know that that's how people, you know, in the Philly area and Delaware area, that's how we talk. I'm East Coast. I'm not polite like on the West Coast and Midwest, which those are some great people. And there's a few people out there that'll kick your ass too. So I'm not I'm not knocking them either.
Right,
Anyway,
it's
that's
getting a little bit
that's
aggressive. It's
ADD
getting a
for
bit
you.
aggressive in this chat now.
Exactly. So here's what I wanted to say is somebody had commented in the chat about the difference between the renders and the final product and the early render that we saw.
Yep.
And I just wanted to touch on so there was some silliness that had happened like very early on when you had just leaked and announced this information, right? About people saying, "Oh, you're not being, you know, forthcoming with everything, blah blah blah." And it's like, well, when you
I
start
always have been.
noticing,
I've never got that accusation. I mean,
okay,
I couldn't have been more open with Cordbot on the Kickstarter campaign, and
so
I've always been the same
what
with.
I'm getting at is that when you see things like you're going to see the casing change, you're going to see the
Yeah.
actual physical casing change, you're going to see actual renders change, right?
Yeah. Now,
That's part of
that's
development.
understandable because some people might be coming to the show a bit late, or they might have only just seen it, so they'll see one picture and then they see something that looks starkly different. But yeah, it's an open. I'm trying to have an open, iterative design process, and so yeah, you might see a picture that looks slightly different, and people will bitch and moan about something, and I'll change it, and it works because, you know, my idea was to have the encoder in the middle of those things, and I was like, oh, we don't need a numerical keypad, and you know, Dynamics 2, and Kenny Dope talked me round on that and said, no, you're an idiot. You need to have a numerical keypad. And actually this first hardware prototype has still got the old design on there, so the next one will obviously be updated again. Always try to look at the latest images. They're the ones that are going to be the production. Now, what I will say is the latest renderings that just went up a couple of days ago, which are the really lovely looking ones with the aluminium side and everything, that is currently what is going to be getting produced. So that's how it's going to look.
So let's talk about some changes because there's a lot of changes since our last show that the viewers aren't aware of. Okay, so
original similar. How do you even say that, Bill? Original simulacrum. In the chat window, that's Bill Berendt. That's Cordbot firmware developer, and also he's doing partial development on the SP2400. He's taking care of all the sequencer stuff, while our other secret guy, I don't think I'm allowed to mention him at the moment, is doing all the audio engine.
Okay. Okay.
Simulacrum.
Well, it's good that you said that, so I don't say the other guy's name. So I don't
Yeah,
want to put him on blast yet.
yeah,
And
yeah,
I'm sure he'll get his share of fame later on, which will be nice because I'm sure
yeah.
people are going to dig it. But
Yeah,
so
yeah.
couple of changes that I want to talk about first. Okay, I'm going to work my way down because there's a lot of changes. Okay, first
Hmm.
thing I want to talk about is the two buttons underneath of the knobs.
Yes. I don't know what they do. I'll just put them there. No, right. I quickly realized that after introducing my idea of loop being a really strong desktop looper, we were going to need some extra buttons there. So I've put two underneath the dual pot, and I put two above the pad. Now they can mean different things in different modes. So, for instance, the ones that have been included on the silicon pad structure, they could be for things like solo and mute, but they could also be to turn loop on. So the next time you hit the pad, the thing's going to loop. Turn it off, hit the pad again, it's not going to loop anymore. Your mind can run away with the possibilities of what those things can be assigned to. And then we've also got the two buttons above the fader, and again, they can be assigned to different things. So they might be assigned to turning a filter on. They might be assigned to, if we get to other effects being in the box, they might be for that. All sorts of stuff.
So
But there's no one set definition for those buttons.
that's kind of one of the things that I wanted to get at
Better to
is
have buttons and not need them, right?
I'm
Then,
right there with
oh
you.
shit, we needed a button for that and we haven't got one, and now
So
you've got to press Shift Alt and two other buttons to get there. So
so
we didn't want that.
before I get to that point, right? We're gonna move down below the fader and we're gonna talk about the other two buttons that have been added that are actually they're part of the silicone pad button group, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So let's talk about why that came about, and then we'll talk about spacing as well because I've seen a couple of comments in different forums and whatnot. I don't go to. I'm gonna fully admit I don't go to Gearsluts because I feel like
It's a
any
wretched hive of scum and villainy.
so there's that, but
No, they're all right.
here's what I'll say
They,
about it. There's a
yeah,
lot of people in there who claim to know things that those of us who are in the know that they're full of shit, but under NDA can't say that they're full of shit. So like I try to stay out of there because if I go in there, it makes me either want to pull my hair out or just walk through a brick wall.
yeah,
So I just, I try to stay out of there. And really any group that gets above like 4,000 members tends to start getting like a lot of fuckery starts happening.
yeah,
But I do try to feel things out, like valid questions and valid criticisms and that sort of thing. And one of the criticisms was, oh, well, that looks too busy,
right.
So let's talk about what those two buttons do, and then let's talk about spacing.
Well, let me I'll directly address that. So, like you said, like I just said a minute ago, those buttons will be doing multiple things. One of the primary things, the ones we're talking about, the ones built into the silicon pads right now. One of the primary things will be loop on off, so you can turn a loop on and off really quickly. Other examples of things might be you might assign, when you do tap repeat, so you'll hold the repeat button and press a pad to go like on quarters or eighths or stuff like that. You might want to pre-assign one of those small pads to just do an eighth note repeat, so that you've got your regular pad there, and then you press that and you've got an eighth note repeat. Like I said, those buttons are going to be assignable to various different things that the machine will do. But more importantly, for me, from a design aspect, to address what you said about spacing and stuff like that, in the prototype that you've seen me working and using in the video, that obviously doesn't yet have those extra buttons. The new design, which has just had all the CAD work done for the metalwork manufacturing and tooling and everything, the whole depth of the unit has increased by something like 25 mils, so 2.5 centimeters. It's about an inch, maybe a bit bigger. I think it's just actually about an inch. So the relative distance between everything that you see on the current prototype and the amount of space between each thing is remained the same, even though we've added new buttons. So you can't really say it's more crowded because it's no different. There's more stuff there, but it's bigger around it.
So that's the key thing for people to hear in their face It's bigger, and really the thing that I kind of thought when I first saw it is if you look at those pads and you look at where the pads above them are, they're not
Yeah.
closer than like let's pretend it was
Those pads are
MPC. Let's
32,
pretend it
32 millimeters square.
well, let's
So they're,
pretend it
they're
was
pretty big.
MPC layout, right? Where you had 4 pads, 4 pads, 4 pads. It's still spaced as wide, if not wider, than if you had a second row of pads above it. And nobody seems to have trouble with accidentally hitting the wrong pad on an MPC. So
Right.
to say that that's too busy, I feel like is like I get the criticism, but I don't think it actually holds weight when you look at that. You know what I mean?
No, but all the same, these criticisms, although they can sometimes, you know, be worded wrong because people just like to bitch.
Well, yeah, people want to pick things apart
They're
and
also
get their
valuable
mind
because
right.
when you read those things, you do question it and you go look, and I get the I get my calipers out and I look at the distances and stuff. And it makes you look at the stuff. It does make you come back and look and just check. Am I right? Yeah, I'm
I'm
right.
gonna try and show
You know?
something. Let's see if this works. If it works, like people will think I'm way cooler than I am. Wait, hold on. Nope, that wasn't what I wanted to show. I'm sorry. I'm inside of our little chat thing. I'm looking for when you originally posted the swirl video,
The swirl video.
the turning video.
Oh, I love that thing.
I know. I'm obsessed with it. Like I'll sit there and just stare at the damn thing. So if you haven't seen it, I'm gonna recommend you go to Isla Instruments. Is it up there? No. Okay. Never mind that. I'm trying to find this video. Do you have it on your desktop?
Which one? The spinny winny winny
Just the
thing.
spinning. Yeah, yeah. Just the spinning render.
Uh, you're asking me to do stuff on the fly, and
Damn right I am.
I was like, no, I can't do that.
I have the A/B test. I know you sent it to me. That's why I'm looking for it. And
Well, it's just right on the Isla Instruments page. It's right up there. It's like the second post down on the
I'm
Isla
gonna
Instruments
show.
page.
Yeah. I'm gonna show this too. I'm gonna show. So let me share my screen real quick. I want to share. So this right here, this image this is the new pads. So you see, let me make sure I'm clicked on myself here, so you guys can see this. This is actually the new pad mold render, right? We lost Brad. He disappeared.
No, you haven't lost me. I just realised that I haven't got my laptop plugged in, and so I might just make a
He's
shot.
decided that this whole SP2400 thing is silly, and he's walked away. No, I'm kidding. So anyway, this is the new pad mold. So you'll notice how there's 2 buttons above it, and that's the button spacing that I'm talking about. Now there's another set of buttons that are above the fader, and I'm going to show that in a second as well. See if I can. There we go. So I'm trying to pull these up because Ski Beats is in the chat. So shout out to Ski Beats, and he asked for some photos, and I want to share some photos.
Just give me. What? I'll be back in 10 seconds.
Okay, so I'm going to share some stuff that he has not authorized me to share because that's what kind of guy I am. So let me pull this up as well. I'm going to minimize the screen just a little bit. And I think people are going to really find this interesting because I don't think he shared this on Instagram or anything. Let me see here. Application window. Here we go. So I don't think this was shared on Instagram or anything else. So first thing you're going to notice is underneath those concentric knobs at the top, you'll see 2 buttons left and right of the fader. And Brad, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm showing stuff that you haven't authorized me to show. Just
so are you?
Yeah. That's how I'm rolling with it. So these this is the actual control board, right? Like this is basically the control board layout. There's a voice board, as with most products. There's a voice board, and then there's a control board, and then there's also, I think you have a separate board for output, right? Input output.
Yes.
So just so people know, if people get these things and crack them open or whatever, you're gonna see a small board for, you know, CPU and all that kind of good stuff, but control is handled separately, voices are handled separately, or like output is handled separately. So you'll see these 2 buttons at the top here next to each fader, and these are the buttons that are new to the design, as well are these 2 buttons down here. And then as he talked about with Chaz Emphatic talking about the number pad, this is where the number pad will be now. And you'll notice that there used to be a knob in the center that's been moved up above the LCD, correct?
Yep.
Or OLED, I should say.
Yep.
Okay. So it's an
that actual
evolving
PCB
design
is a little bit outdated, but the layout is the same. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's an evolving design is basically what I'm getting at. And as this interview progresses, I'll probably show you guys some other things. But one of the main changes with this was the fact that you guys decided to move that control knob. Can you talk to us a little bit about what's going on? Like, how does that change affect what you guys are doing? Because your prototype is very different.
Yeah. You mean the encoder?
Yeah.
Well, as I said earlier, the reason for that was Kenny Dope and Dynamics 2, David Noller, that talked me round out of that. I didn't really believe or in the need for a numerical keypad, and they, you know, sat me down and had a come to Jesus with me, and like Kenny Dope's like, no, you absolutely need that. That's silly. No, you need a numerical keypad. So that came back in, and of course, I still wanted the rotary encoder because I think for scanning through files and folders, you know, twisting down that, going down a directory list is much quicker than tap 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 trying to get down a list. So we've got the best of both worlds now. We've got both. We've got the numerical keypad and an extra 2 buttons there, and the rotary encoder's moved up to top left. And a few other people had sort of made points. Yeah, I'm not going to put my hands up and say, you know, I'm no Tim Apple, Tim Apple, whatever. And they quite rightly said, you know, if you're messing around with that encoder there, your hands are covering over what the other buttons are and stuff like that. And where I've moved it to now, it's up above the OLED screen, and so it's well out the way. I realise I'm making silly hand gestures here. I'm pretending that it's in front of me, but it makes much more sense. That's what I'm saying. It's an iterative design process. People getting, you know, kind of crowd design it with you a little bit, and you end up with something that you don't release on your own. If I'd have just done it, gone ahead, released it on their own, you know, there'd be a lot of people complaining about it, and it wouldn't be as popular. So I think it's a good thing when you get, you know, crowd design it and people get involved, and everyone puts their ideas in. Sometimes it can be difficult to just cut through the noise. You know, some people will say, "Oh, I want my fucking buttons pink," and it's like, well, make your own box stand with pink buttons.
So
you know?
hold on. So in the chat, again, I get distracted by that, but I want to bring this up because some people bring up the size, okay? And I see some people saying, "Oh, why can't it be smaller?" And Pete Brown, shout out to Pete Brown. He was asking, "Why is it so deep?" You know, this, that, and the third. And so I wanted to bring this stuff up. I have my own thoughts on it, but I'm going to let you answer it, and then we can kind of go into that.
Well, okay. First off, okay, when people say, "Oh, it's too big," I'm just going to say one thing about that. If you just give me a second. It's not too big. Look how big the original is. You know?
Yeah.
It's not too big. Second,
hold on, show that one more time. Hold on. Hold on.
So
keep holding it. Hold on.
What are you doing?
I'm doing screenshots.
What, you're masturbating or something?
Maybe later. Don't worry about what I do.
Hold it there just a second longer. Don't stop. No. So it's about 2/3 the original size, and as I said, it's gotten a little bit bigger. I happen to want it to be big, and you know, it's designed to be sort of a centerpiece, not a little thing. I love little stuff that you can pop in your bag and get on the road with, but that's not what this is designed for. It's not meant to be that. Props out to the other guy, Low Hiss. He's doing a DIY project, I believe, that he's going to crowdfund. That does look
like it's going to be a small thing.
And by all accounts, that looks like it's going to be pretty faithful rendition, and it's going to be small. So if you want to get a small one, maybe take a look at Low Hiss's project.
Yeah.
There does seem to be a lot of people trying to cause fights between me and him, and I'm not interested in that stuff. Got mad admiration for the guy, and wish him good luck.
Yeah, yeah. It should be an interesting and very different product too. So there's
Yeah.
that, you know. Um, Back to the size, I just wanted to say a couple of quick things. This is not intended to be a travel unit. Like you're not trying to put a
Yeah.
lipo battery in it
It
or
will
anything
be
like that,
if you put
right?
it in a flight case. It should be in a flight case.
Well,
It's that sort of thing, you know.
so, and I say this as a guy who, like, back in the 90s, or well, really late 2000, no, mid 2000s, I used to drive around with an MPC 2000 XL and a power inverter in my car. So, like, I like travel is relative. You know what I mean? Like travel size is relative. But I'll just say, like, you know, as far as the size of it, I mean, if you made it small, like vocal small or whatever, people would be like, "Oh, I got sausage fingers," or it. You know, you're always going to have somebody saying one thing or the other. At the end of the day, what you're going for is an ergonomic workflow that is something that can be a centerpiece, right?
Yeah.
Why not?
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
ski won't shut the hell up in here.
I already told him 4 banks. Well, it's 4 banks at the moment. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So four banks of 8 samples, right?
Yeah.
And you know who knows
At the
what
risk of sounding like Bill Gates here, who needs more than 32 samples going on in one production?
No, well, okay, well that can segue into an interesting feature set. Okay, so who needs more than 32 samples? Well, people who want to play things chromatically, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that doesn't count the fact that like you will automatically be able to chromatically play your keys. Like if you sample something, you will be able to plug up a MIDI keyboard to this unit and play it across
Yep.
keys, right?
Yeah.
So can you talk to me a little bit about what your envision of this? This isn't in the unit yet, right? Because right now you just have like OG functionality in there. Like that stuff's not in there all the way yet, right?
Well, actually, it's already got US because it's got USB host, which most people know about already, as well as USB device. It's also got USB host, so you can plug things like you can plug a keyboard into it, like a typing keyboard, if you wanted to, and plug in an external MIDI controller. Which in some of the early demos, I was actually using one of those little Akai MIDI mix things, which is purely USB. But if you plug a class, it's called class compliant. So all of those USB MIDI controllers that you can get, you just plug USB in. You don't need a driver. It just detects it as a MIDI controller. Our unit does that already. That functionality is already built in. We got that up first because we needed it for testing. So yeah, USB MIDI in, standard MIDI in. Not sure what else. What do you want me to say about that?
I'm just typing some trollish type shit in the chat.
Yeah, it's not an octatrack, man.
I said personally, if you use more than 24 percussion samples in your beat, it's too busy. You need to pull some shit out. But
or why not just bounce them all into a loop?
Well, exactly, and that's the other thing. So loop, huh? Let's talk about loops.
Okay.
Because I've been following you and things that you've been answering other people, so I can like poke and prod and hit you in the eye with things. So I'm gonna say, I heard word of a looper.
Yes. Yeah. Didn't we talk about this last time?
No, we did not.
Yeah. So
I specifically shut my mouth about it.
Especially with superstars, superstars rising up like Marc Rebel and those guys. I mean, he must be doing amazing for Roland,
Which is
for
funny
Boss's
that you
sales,
mention him because like he's actually just an up and comer. Like there's guys that have been around for a while.
But also
Don't get it twisted.
I
I'm a
love guys
fan.
like Beardy Man and
I'm a fan of Marc. I just want to say the only thing that I'm worried about with Marc, and if Marc sees this, if he's sitting in a hotel room somewhere right now and watches this, because I just saw him on Sway and Tech, which is awesome because I love Sway and Tech. Or I'm sorry, Sway. I'm so old school. I said Sway and Tech, but anyway, Marc, please watch your posture. He hunches over so much, and I'm like, dude, he's gonna be like an old grandma so soon. But like, I love him.
Yeah, but then you got him. Style. My original favorite, obviously, is Beardy Man because
Bearded Man,
another British guy, and he's been doing
Reggie
it for years.
Watts.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of great loopers out there. Rico
Well,
Loop.
I watched them, and it made me go out and buy one.
Nice.
The
Isn't that a fun
505.
piece of plastic?
It is a fun piece of plastic, but it's a fucking nightmare when you get it out of the box and you're like, It's not the most intuitive thing to use out of the box, I don't think.
My
And I'm
biggest
not an
gripe with
idiot.
that, my biggest gripe with that
I've got
thing
a
is
lot of gear, and I know
that
how
thing
to
is
use
meant
stuff.
for the stage, and it's built out of
Yeah.
like crap plastic. I just
Yeah.
bought a JDXA, and
Yeah.
I gotta say, like, in all honesty, if there's anybody from Roland watching,
kind of do
pretend
the
you didn't
same,
hear
don't
me
they?
shit on your product. But
Yeah, you ain't
holy
getting
crap,
more reviews now.
Roland build quality has gone down the shitter so bad. Like, it's so sad because, like, man, like look, I'll save it for another show. I got so much to rant about the JDXA, but I'll do that later. But it's still a really interesting piece of kit. But
Yeah, can we bring it
wow.
back to me, please? It's all about me. Yeah. No, but so anyway, I got one of those RC 505s, and it's an awesome little machine. But messing around with it, I'm like, I think our SP2400 can do this, and it sort of lends itself really well to being able to pull stuff like that off. And that was actually also part of the reason why I added the extra 2 buttons to the silicon pad structure, because they would be needed for live looping functions. Yeah.
So, okay, so just to clarify for people, one of the modes that is going to be in it, is it going to be its own mode?
One of the most, yes, it would be a little mode that you'll drop into, but one of the most important aspects of it being able to pull off something like being a live looper is something called full duplex, with full duplex audio. So you need to be able to record or you need to be able to sample while you're playing independently out of different channels at the same time. Which brings me on to another little point that I wanted to address real quick as well. Something that you don't see in the renders, which is in the new PCB designs, is that we've added another codec, another DAC chip, if you like, to the device, so that we've got headphone monitoring.
Oh, nice.
And so essentially that's like channel 9 and 10. But it's primarily for headphones, so that you can independently monitor any channel of the SP2400 while it's playing, or you might be wanting to input what's coming on the record input, or monitor the record input and stuff like that. So independent monitoring. I have this secret, like, because I'm obviously, first and foremost, I started off as a DJ, so I love DJ gear and stuff like that, and I also kind of see the 2400 as being a fun thing that you can pull off, DJ mixes on. So obviously independent channel monitoring on your headphones would be a must for that. So that's something else that's been put in, so that lends itself to DJing, and it also lends itself to the live looping mode.
Okay, so let me just ask this first. The DAC for headphone, is it decent quality? Because some people skimp on that. And
it is 108 decibels dynamic range. So
good.
Anything really above 90 something, 98 is considered studio quality. So
it's a valid question, because I do have certain gear that, like, some people in certain situations, I've been there. I've been through all the shitty clubs. So I can tell you, there's situations where you got to run out your headphone output because something is screwed up. Somebody forgot a cable, whatever happens. So to me, these are valid questions. Some pieces of gear have horrible headphone outputs, and that's why I bring it up.
And King Diz Yabish, someone explain USB host to me. Okay, on the back of your computer, or the USB ports that are on your computer, they're USB host. And if you pick up a MIDI control keyboard that's got USB on the back of it, that's USB client or USB device. When you have USB, you have to have a host and a client. So the SP2400 is both. It's USB host in the sense that you can plug things into it, so it can host a USB thumb drive and access the files on it, or it can host a MIDI control keyboard that you connect to it via USB, or it can host a typing keyboard or stuff like that. Whereas if it's just a device, it's what used to be called master and slave, but now it's host and device. an example of a device is a USB mouse. There you go. That can't host anything, but it can be a device to something that's a USB host. So I hope that clears that one up for you.
Okay, so we keep getting a question about the processor. Do you want to divulge that or no?
Yeah, sure. Where's the what processor did it use? It uses ST Microelectronics. It's an ARM processor, basically. Okay. But not only is it an ARM processor, it has two fully independent processors built in, and they're the top of the range STM32 microcontrollers.
And that's what I wanted to get at is
way over.
I said
this to you earlier. The processors are way over spec. My developer says you really don't need processors this powerful, and let alone do you need and I don't mind spending a bit more money on it, because I don't ever want to run into the issue of should we want, you know, add more features or something down the road. We might not, but should we have come up with a great idea that physically it would be able to do this great idea, I don't want to run into a situation where we can't do it because there's not enough power in the processor. And I don't want to run into an iterative process of doing a Mark II, a Mark III, and a Mark IV every year or every 2 years, because that's bullshit, the way that the industry does that. So if you look at something like an SP2400, 1200, people are still using that thing 30 years later. You know, there's been no firmware updates for it.
All right,
for many years, you know. So
this is
I really want to strive to do a device like that doesn't need loads of firmware updates all the time.
Yeah, and this is a little bit out of context, but I just like answering people in the chat, because these are the people who potentially will buy and you know, are curious. So let's go ahead and bring up a conversation about beta testers. People are asking about who's involved, who's helping, who is going to probably give you insight. And you kind of already touched on that a little bit with the fact that like Chaz Emphatic helped you out with understanding about.
I'll give you a quick rundown. Now there's more to be there's more to be confirmed. A few more, maybe about 4 more people that are yet to be confirmed. But at the moment, of course, our famous Mr. Ski Beats is in there. But we've got Easy Moby, my personal all-time hero, Kenny Dope, from Masters at Work, Illmind, Questlove, Ski Beats, Fredrek, Dynamics 2, that's David Noller, EA Ski, Chaz Emphatic, Alan Brax, which was like he was a really early pioneer of like the French house filter disco movement, and one of his biggest tunes was done on it. Well, many of his tunes were done on an SP1200. Some guy called Kenflix Pierce. I don't even know how he made it on the list. Never heard of him.
Yeah, his name's actually pronounced Flux, not Flix.
Kenflix is being Pierce.
See, that's why we broke away from the crown.
And Rory Dow, and he's done some he does some really cool sample packs, and he's worked with FX Expansion for a long time, and Rolly and stuff like that, and he's a really good guy to have on board as well. So
I only bring that up because you know, people ask, and at the end of the day, there was another question in here that kind of it piqued my interest a little bit. So there was a question in here about bugs, right? And they were saying, you know, how will bugs be addressed? And
yeah. Well, that's part of the reason. Sorry, you go on.
Well, I was going to say, in any other product, like let's say it was, you know, a sequencer, or like say like the Corebots or whatever else, bugs are something that come up and then they kind of like get addressed over time, this, that, and the third. But with a sequencer and a sampler, they are very unique products. Sequencers and samplers, when you're creating a product like this, it's not the same as when you're just creating a synthesizer or just creating a controller or whatever. I've been a part of a lot of different projects. Every time when you're doing a sequencer, and if you're doing a sampler and sequencer especially, you're going to have lots of interesting tweaks that have to take place. You're going to find out a lot of different workflows that no one ever expected, because there's always some weird kid in a closet somewhere that has a crazy workflow. And guess what? 10 years later, he's the next Mad Lib. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there's something to be said about how bugs get addressed and how updates will happen.
Yeah.
What is your thought process on this and long-term support?
Well, that is exactly why we've got such a large there's around about 20 that are set aside for beta testers and people that really use these machines to their full potential. So they're people that know what they're talking about when it comes to this machine. With such a large testing pool, you know, we're going to be putting ourselves in the best position come time for the product, for the you know, release shipping, which will be like December, January. I really feel that we'll have a lot of this stuff covered. You can't say there's never going to be any bugs. You know, even in early stuff, even like the SP1200, I think it's version 1.6, is it, or 1.2. There's always going to be some little bug fixes here and there, and some of those little things can be so hidden on such an obscure feature that you don't find out about them for a long time. And but as soon, obviously, you know, bugs are there to be fixed. And another good thing about that is that our audio engine is completely separate from the sequencer engine as well. They're physically two different circuit boards and two different processors, so they're separated from each other.
So people are asking about the sample size. Sample size has already been announced that it's not limited.
Yeah.
If you've got an SD card that's huge, there you go.
Yeah, we've got like 64 megabytes on board.
Well, that's what I was about
to really used to store. That doesn't mean that you're limited. It's the 64 megabytes is basically just used as a running cache memory. So if you're,
but you'll be doing direct streaming or what?
No, it's not direct streaming. That's what the RAM is used for on board. So, for instance, you could have 8 channels, all with a full-length sampled album. Every one of those channels can be playing a full 40-minute album with you messing around with the pitches and everything. There's just 64 megabytes on board that's caching and buffering that playback, and it's all allocated to each channel. So you can't really get buffer underruns or buffer overruns or anything like that unless you've got some, like, you know, 1994 SD card that's really slow. So
what you're saying is that if you set sample on, right?
Yeah.
And you've got a nice card, you can just go ahead. Can you
sample the rest of your life from this point? Yeah.
Okay, that's what I'm getting at. That's what I'm getting at. So, yes, there is a card slot on the back. People are asking. It's a micro SD card, if I do recall correctly.
It is a micro SD card at the moment, but that's going to actually go to a full size SD card.
Can I ask why?
Yeah, because it's really fucking difficult to get it in and out the back.
Okay. You know what? That's a good. Let me just say that.
That's why. So the SD card in this prototype is here, and I can just about get my thumb in there to pull it out.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was like, no, because we're using a thick steel enclosure and micro SD card sockets, PCB mount sockets, aren't really designed. They're meant to sort of be. They're really sort of designed for phones and stuff like that, which they're right to the edge of the case. Or the micro SD cards are put in little trays, and you push the tray into the phone. So it just doesn't really seem to lend itself very well to this sort of larger design. So it's a big SD card. It is. You can still use micro SD card, but you just put it in, you know, the little adapter things. Is that cool?
Yeah, I'm typing something that I'm trying to be political about. Let me think. So I'm trying to be political about this, and this has nothing to do with DITC, because like DITC was one of the people that mentioned, and I said I'm a huge fan of DITC, and this has literally nothing to do with DITC because that's not who I'm talking about at all. But I just want to say, oh my God, hold on, I got pot roast. It's Father's Day. Happy Father's Day to everybody.
Happy Father's Day. Yeah, me too. Isla, come say hello.
So I just want to say this. Not everyone who's a superstar producer is the best choice to help with product creation. And people should be aware of that, because just because they make amazing beats does not mean that they stay up to date with the latest production gear, does not mean that they have a mind towards this sort of thing. Maybe they're face down in their own artwork, you know?
Yeah.
Hi, Isla. This is the namesake of Isla Instruments on air.
Yep, this is Isla. She's the boss of Isla Instruments. Yeah.
And hi. So I just want to say, like, you know, you just have to know, just because someone is an amazing SP1200 producer does not necessarily mean that they're going to give you the best feedback. So,
Well, it's not.
and
It's
that's
not
not a
only that. They
slight
might.
against
A lot
those
of them don't have
producers
the
at
time.
all.
A lot of them don't have the time. A lot of them aren't necessarily good at giving technical feedback. What are you looking at?
I'm not allowed to say.
Oh, right.
I love my wife.
Okay. All right. Say no more.
Happy Father's Day.
Yeah, no, there's still some names to be confirmed. I see a few people throwing names out up there in the list, like Pete Rock and stuff like that. I've reached out to Pete Rock, and I think he is coming on board. Questlove has actually done a lot of the running around on that for me, and sort of got people together. And I think Pete Rock was mentioned in the list, but I before I have actually announced it on the website with their images and stuff, I've reached out and said, look, do you mind me using your headshot and stuff to put you on the beta testing team? So if they didn't reply yet, they're not on the list. Love you. See you in a little while.
Okay.
But yeah, there's a few. I think there's about 4 more to be confirmed on that list.
But that's, I just wanted to clarify, because a lot of people
and
a lot of people don't understand that, like, just because somebody is a great producer does not necessarily mean that they always have the input that is needed for a product. And that's not a slight on the producers at all. It's
hard work. You've got to be able to not only find a bug, but then retrace your steps to do it again, and then articulate exactly how to get there and stuff like that. And it's not as easy. It's not as easy as one would think. You can't just say, oh, it crashed when I did this, because that doesn't help trying to, you know, tackle the bug. But
so anyway, I
no bugs whatsoever. It's going to be fine.
Yeah. So I just wanted to clarify that, because it seems like the general public who follows this stuff doesn't always understand that kind of stuff, like isn't on the inside. And I don't expect you guys to necessarily know that or to have been through that. Like I've been in boardrooms with producers that are amazing, that I myself am like, wow, like I love being in the room with these guys. It's so cool. But at the same time, like, I've also been in the rooms where I've seen some of my heroes and I'm like, oh, okay, you thought things work this way. No, they don't, you know? So, and that's fine. You know, it's, to me, at the end of the day, it's about the music, and it has nothing to do with that. So, AIN is asking about a Corobot. He says, if there is no, we already talked about the Corobot, so I'm not sure what he's asking. If there's no order status change yet, is it not coming anytime soon? I don't know what he's asking.
Yeah, I said that at the start of the video, buddy. If you've got an order that's waiting for a Corobot, I said right at the start that we've just built 360 bots this weekend, and that's why this interview was delayed, because we were still building them. 160 of those went yesterday, and I ran out of shipping boxes. Shipping boxes will be here on Tuesday. So if you've already got an order waiting to go out, that's where it is. It will be going out Tuesday, Wednesday.
Yeah, and I highly recommend you go watch the beginning of the show, because that was literally the whole beginning of the show. So, you know, if you missed that, don't blame Brad, because like I kind of covered that early, and not everybody was probably in the stream just yet. So sorry about that. No, not sorry about that. I did the right thing. You're wrong for not being here on time. Okay. So another thing about the SP2400 that I want to talk about is I want to talk about some of the coding stuff that you guys are doing, right? So you guys are doing classic workflow on there. But you've also started implementing like digital filtering and little just small things, like not sequencer related, that are new. What are your thoughts behind doing some of that stuff?
In terms of what do you mean?
Well, in terms of like sampling and sound, because you posted an A/B video. So let's talk about
I think that one went down really well, the A/B test. Like I said earlier, I obfuscated those and didn't make them just A/B, A/B, A/B. It was like A, B, 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 A, B, B, A, B, B, A.
Yeah.
And people were like, yeah, the first one of everyone is definitely. It's like, well, then I just proved my point. So that couldn't have gone better, I don't think. With modern day sort of 21st century features in this box is something that I'm trying to approach carefully, because I don't want to. There's plenty of boxes out there that do a ton of shit, and not all of them do it very well. And I want to listen. There's been some amazing hit records made on pretty much just that machine, right? The extra modern features that I add to this box, what I don't want them to take away from workflow, and I don't want them to start making the device confusing. Or how do I get to this? How do I do that? That's a real prime driver for me, is trying to keep it as much one button per function as possible, and just to not have loads of bloat in there. You know, I've already been asked about things like parameter locks and all that kind of stuff, and I'm like, half the time I don't even fucking know what P locks are, but I do get it, but it's just not something I'd ever use. Yeah, a lot of modern. This isn't about all the modern, super modern bells and whistles. Now, there are things that we haven't talked about yet that are going to be actually pretty simple to do, and that's things like transient detection. When you sample in a loop or load in a loop, the machine, the SP2400 will be able to do transient detection on that. What do you call it? Auto slicing. So you get a drum loop, it looks at all the transients, detects those, puts a line there and puts slices in for you. And then, you'll be able to spread that loop across the pads and stuff like that. So features like that, I think that are immediately useful. But some of the stuff, it just gets too bloaty, or you've got to have too much printed on the device, and then it just becomes confusing, to figure out what you're doing with it.
So one question that we got asked, that's an interesting question, and it's on some modern devices, is beat export. Do you think that there will be like a bounce down functionality, or do you want to have people just track it out to a DAW, or what do you want to do?
Okay, so there's a couple of options, and if my developers, we haven't hugely spoke about this in great depth yet, so I'm not going to.
Before you go too deep, because I know you have a tendency to talk ahead of time.
I'll get off the interview, and he'll be on the phone and be like, "What do you think? I can't do that one."
Yeah, let's listen before we go into that. If it's a feature that's not fully implemented, but is an idea or something that you're considering, say it as such, so that no one punches you in the face.
Yeah, exactly. No, rendering back to SD card and stuff like that should not be too much of a problem. One of my ideas there would be that almost the same as the way the Roland boutiques work. You can plug the Roland boutique in via USB, and it becomes a sound card to your computer. So when you're recording in Cubase, you can record the separate channels. If you had the Roland boutique TR-08, you connect it via USB and then go into Cubase, and it will separately record all the drum tracks there as it plays them. So that was one of my ideas. Hopefully it will be able to do that. But yeah, in terms of rendering and stuff like that, that's, it's not, we just haven't got there yet. So I can't really talk about that too much.
And that's fair. Like, be okay with saying that. Like, I want to make it clear that there's going to be a lot, and I'm sure you know this, but there's a lot of questions that are like, okay, well, we're just not at that development stage yet. And that's fine. People should understand that. I think in this day and age, there's been a fake development timeline that's kind of come into people's knowledge, right? So like people will show up at NAMM and they'll be like, we had this in development, when in reality that's been in development for almost 2 years.
Okay.
And then you see things like
close the door,
I've been seeing Behringer will announce things actually as it's being developed, and people will be like, oh, well, why hasn't the 808 been shown yet? And like, I'm like, you know what, I got the 808 here, and guess what, it's not ready for you people yet. Calm down. And that's because there's this fake mentality of, oh, well, like a product development should only be like 6 months or something. No, most products get developed over years, and that's just the reality of the fact.
No, and it's a super stressful. A lot of people don't think about that aspect, and half the time, poor Bill and the other guy must be like wanting to slash me. They must want to cut me at times. There's a classic thing between a designer, and I'm the sales marketing designer, that guy, and the engineers. and they'll blame each other for stuff. You know, we'll sell something that they. I always know that they can do it. It's just they have to believe in them. I make them believe in themselves that they can do it, and eventually you can do it. But those things take time.
Yeah,
And yeah, a lot of people don't
exactly.
appreciate that. They're like, "Oh, it should do this now."
Yeah. So I just kind of like to kind of reinforce it, because
Is that about right, Bill? If you're still here, is that about right? Yeah. Is that how
people are gonna see this, and they see it as like, oh, okay, well, Flux is advertising this, and in truth, like my channel is kind of weird. Like, I know a lot of
Well,
like
you're kind of weird.
well, yeah, that's true. But I know a lot of like the YouTube influencers that do YouTube influencing professionally and all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
In truth, I try to masquerade as an influencer when I'm not really. Like, I'm actually like,
I would rather you not be an influencer and just be someone that knows what the fuck they're talking about.
and that's
That's
really where I
actually much
am.
more important than being an influencer.
I'm just the guy who, like, I help teach some of the influencers, and then, you know, in my spare time, like the majority of the time, I'm helping develop these things and doing sound design. And then every once in a while, I'm like, oh, you guys are going to let me actually talk to you? Well, then let me share that with the world. Like, you know, I started doing this stuff before influencing was like a thing. So it's not an influencer thing for me. Like, I'm not Bo Beats, and Bo Beats is a friend of mine. He's a great guy. I think people who want to advertise should use him. And he's very forthcoming about what he knows and what he doesn't know.
Yeah.
But that's not me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's not what I'm doing. And
Yeah, they're
I'm
more
here to try to,
artistry as well. I find, you know, their channels and their videos are produced very well, and it's clear that you probably went to school for that stuff, and it looks good, and it's very easy to watch. It's entertainment. I'm not saying that Bo Beats doesn't know anything. I would
no,
never
Bo
say
is a
that.
great guy.
Yeah,
Listen,
no, I know he is.
I know influencers who
But
have
it's more.
come
It's
to
all
me, and
their
I've taught
content
them
is
stuff,
getting.
and they
Yeah,
gave no credit, and they pretend like they knew everything about the product, and then
yeah,
they put their videos out. And you know what? I don't help those people anymore. But, you know,
yeah.
Bo is a great guy, and he will outright tell people, look, I'm here drinking coffee, and I'm talking about synths to people who are new to synths.
There's
And
you
that's
kicking
great,
bottles of
because I was that kid
whiskey
one
over.
time. Dude, I was that kid one time who didn't know about how to do this kind of stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, like, don't shit on people who are newbies. You know what I mean? Like, that's a great thing to have. Like, more people coming into this thing makes more products get sold, which makes the price of products come down. So don't hate on newbies.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's my rant over. So one more thing about the SP2400 that I really want to talk about. Okay. So the pads. Let's talk about the thickness of the pads, because this is something that not everybody's really been talking about so much. But as a finger drummer, as somebody who likes to play these instruments, tell me about that design process. Are you thinking about, like, okay, like, you know, MPC stuff has their fat pads, the regular MPC has its pads, Machine has its pads. Have you looked at different pad thicknesses, and as far as,
Give me 10 seconds. Give me 10 seconds.
I hope it's good. So he left. I'm not really giving him 10 seconds. We're going to talk about some other stuff real quick before he gets back here. So the SP1200, the outputs, right? He's got all these different outputs on the back, and they all have different filtering on the output. So when he gets back here, we're also going to jam him up about what filters are on the outputs.
Now, when you talk about fat pads, I'm not really sure what you mean. This was one of the first prototypes of our pads 3D printed for size and form and fit. So these, I guess you're talking about the height of how far they come out of the enclosure. Yeah, because that's something that I think a lot of people have mentioned on the on the prototype. It's like, oh, the pads seem really flat. Yeah, that's because those pads came out of an MPC Touch. they're borrowed. Well, silicon injection molds are very expensive to get made, and so when you're just in the early design stages, you're not going to go and get a silicon injection mold made for to do a one-off. So no, the pad structure. In terms of height, you're doing that by the mic on purpose, aren't you?
Cheers.
These so the pads are raised from the front panel surface about 3.5 to 4 millimeters. So it's actually about the same as the original MPC.
which is nice. I've always been of the, I'm just being honest on here. I've always been of the mind. I was involved in Machine, MK2 and on, like the hardware. I didn't do anything on the MK3, so I don't want to say anything about that. But MK2, I will honestly say, are my favorite finger drumming pads. And if you yank one of those units apart, those pads are fairly thick. They're chunky. You'll be surprised at, like, there might only be a little bit sticking through the panel, but if you look underneath, they're actually pretty thick. So anyway, I'll say that once I get a prototype in my hands, I will tell you how I feel about that, but I'll be hypercritical. That's not to say that you can't do them with either size quality. The only reason why I really bring it up is because some people feel that it's a needed upgrade and some people don't. Now, I did the MPC Fat Pad upgrade on the 1000, and that needed it, but that's because the 1000 sucks. Like, its pads were terrible, its buttons were terrible. It was built pretty terrible.
Yeah.
But the 2000 XL, I don't feel like necessarily needed, but the cork upgrade for the 2000 XL is quite nice. So that's, like, you know, it all depends on what the response and the curves are. So hopefully there's a lot of attention paid there. Now, I know a lot of people were kind of like saying, oh, you should have used tack buttons like the old SP1200 and SP12. And I'm like, you guys are out of your damn mind.
Yeah, it needed to be velocity sensitive. So, and that is something that you can turn off. Obviously, that's why you've still got multi-level mode and stuff like that for that classic workflow. But well, the original had velocity sensitivity, but it was just very rudimentary in the way that it worked, the little piezo transducer. But no, velocity sensitive pads. There's no need to be. There's some things that need to be brought into the 21st century, and there's some things that don't, and that was one of the things that did. Right.
I agree. So what are some other things in the chat that people are asking about? They were asking about resampling. Do you think that there'll be resampling ability?
When you say resampling, what do you mean by that? If you mean what I think you might mean, it's remember that it's got two concurrent audio engines. So we've got a 24-bit audio engine and we've got the 12-bit audio engine. Okay. The 12-bit audio engine records at samples in at 26040 kilohertz, and is using, from what we can tell, you know, and we've done a lot of measurements and stuff on the oscilloscopes and stuff, that it's sampling exactly the same. It sounds pretty much the same. So there's that. If you're talking about in terms of I've lost my thread here now.
Resampling, as far as
if resampling means to you like doing that thing where you would record in at 45, if you had a 33 and a third album, you'd record it in at 45 plus 8 and record in like that to get that extra sort of bitey crystalline sort of sound out of the playback. That's something that we were talking about as doing as a little software feature in there, so that you can record something in at normal speed, but do that little trick that it will basically internally pitch the sample up, you know, play it to itself and record it back pitched up, essentially.
So
is that what you mean?
Here's a valid question. We sort of answered this before, but I want to touch a little bit more because development continues. The pads, right? So you want to do black top on the pads. Is that going to be part of the mold of the pads, or is that painted on, or like, do you already know,
No.
or do you not know yet?
No, I'm happy to tell you about the process. That's something that I've walked back on slightly, and you'll see the latest renders are the whole pad structure is solid black. Now, this is how they're made. Okay. You start off with a silicon mold and you use translucent silicone, and the mold is poured in with that. And then they use what they call spray oil, and it's not spray paint. It's like an oil that sets, and they do a thick layer of black over the whole thing, right? Minus the bottom. And then what they do, it goes into, it's laser sintered. So they laser etch away the thing will come through and laser etches either text or whatever it is that you want to laser etch out of the pad structure. So in our case, we've got the square pads, and what I'm doing is laser sintering a square that's about 2 millimeters thick in line width around the whole surface of the top of the pad. So whereas before it was only the top of the pad was painted black, now the whole pad is black, but I've laser sintered a square out of the top of it. And on the smaller pads that are part of the same structure, there are just some lines that are being sintered out. And when you sinter away the lines out of the black coating, that allows then light to transmit through the pad structure.
And you feeling good about that?
Yeah, I am feeling good about that. Yeah, for sure.
Because that's I mean, it's like a minor thing, but at the same time, when you're dealing with a product like this, where a lot hangs on aesthetics and workflow and that, you know, like for instance, we're getting a question about the.
So no, I want to wind this back real quick because I
Okay.
want to explain something that explains my wanting to use colors on the pads. Something that you can't do on the original is that you press the bank button, right, and the whole page, all 8 channels there, are either on A, B, C, or D. Okay, and the reason why I've introduced colors on mine is because you can have those 4 pages of 8 samples, but you'll also be able to press bank and press a pad and shift. You might be on bank A, but and you'll be able to quickly shift one of those pads into a different bank. So you might have, if you're on your standard layout there, you might be able to have channel 1 might be playing something from bank A, but channel 4 might be playing something from bank C, but they're all on the same page together. You know what I'm saying? So the colors on the pads will let you know visually which bank that pad sample is being played from.
I can tell you that being involved
and I like rainbows as well.
Well, I'll tell you that being involved in the machine very early on, which was the first of like the 16 pad controllers to do colors, there was a lot of pushback on that. Even from inside, internally, there was pushback on that. And like I'm not gonna lie and say that I fully agree, because like, and my buddy in Germany knows who I'm talking to right now. He used to rant about the colors and how much he hated that. And I was like, you know what? Anything that tells me while I'm on a stage what mode I'm in and I don't have to like eyeball a screen makes me happy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like, I get it. Some people are like, oh, I don't want these Skittles colors all over my drum machine. I just want it matte black and murdered out and blah, blah, blah. That's all well and cool. But have you performed live and been like, oh my God, where am I at right now? This girl just spilled a drink next to me and I'm still trying to perform, like whatever, you know? Like I've been there, I've seen it. Like, you know, colors help. I don't care what anybody says, but I do like the idea. I like the way that the MPC does it, where you have like black on top and then some color shining out. So that's cool with me. What are some other things?
The way that I've done it with sintering the square out the top will allow less light through. So it'll be less obvious and less glaring that there's loads of pretty colors on the pads. So it's more informative than it is decorative.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
That's me trying to accommodate people that saying they don't like lights over everything.
You want to keep it classy.
Yeah.
And so I want to touch base on the sides. You've decided to go with these aluminum sides, and that was a question.
You want to touch the sides?
well, you posed a question to people asking about like wood side panels and this, that, and this was a while ago, in case you don't recall, but it's been a while since we had the interview. The sides that you came up with in the render look really, really nice. Do you think they're going to be that thick when they actually hit the unit?
Yeah, between 6 and 8 millimeters.
I like it.
Yeah, no, so do I as well. Listen, like I've said before, what's really important is that this thing is built like an effing tank, and I want it. And that's another reason why it's big, because I want it to be a big sit there on your desk statement thing. You know, it's thick and juicy, and you can knock it about a bit, and you know, I like the sort of industrial look of it rather than it looking like a plastic toy that you put in your rucksack.
So people were like, one person was saying like, "Oh, wood, please," and then other people were like, "No wood." Well, I know, I've interviewed
Well, it
different
won't be
guys.
that. It
If you
won't
go
be
check
very.
out, this is a shout out to one of the other shows that I'm on Beat People. So if you
Yeah.
go into youtube.com, check out Beat People podcast with my buddy Corey of B-Boy Tech Report. We interviewed a guy named Mike, and he makes wood ends for all kinds of gear, and I guarantee you he'll make wood ends for the
Yeah.
SP2400 when it
No,
comes.
I hope that stuff
So
does come out. There's loads of really talented guys, like you got the people that do the skins and the custom NPCs and the wood sides. Everyone's beckoning at me like the door. You know that politician that was on CNN and the kids come bundling in.
yeah.
It's
But you know what?
look, my wife
Fluxwithit is for the babies.
my wife is crawling on the floor there trying to beckon Isla out the door.
It's Father's Day. This is
I know
what we
it's Father's Day.
celebrate.
She's allowed it. It doesn't matter.
So, like I don't want to hang you on for too long here. Let's start towards the end here. Is there anything that we forgot that we should discuss? So for one, again, check Isla Instruments because he put up the AB video. He's also got a video.
You got to meet this.
Dr. Ed.
Hi.
Dr. Ed is just dropping off a sequential circuits Pro 1 and a Jupiter 8. A Jupiter 8.
I don't really play with them. I just loan them out.
Yeah. To me.
Wait, hold on. Did you just say you got a Jupiter 8 there?
Yeah. Do you want to see it, Real? Do you want to see it?
I want to see it. Yeah. You're talking about a synthesizer that's worth more than a lot of these people's cars.
Okay, yeah. What? 18 grand firm if anybody wants to know.
And this poor guy hasn't got his studio room set up. He's got every synth. He's got like he's got a Prophet 2 T8 in there.
I just bought a Polyevolver.
I'm going to buy wood to build the walls for my new studio tomorrow. So I fully identify with that.
Oh man. Oh, I like the shirt, by the way.
Careful what you say, because there's many people on YouTube.
You got it.
Live.
Look at that case.
This guy,
guys, I hope anybody watching right now, if any of you are watching for the SP2400 only and don't want to see a Jupiter 8, you guys should just leave. You're not part of my crew. Look at that. That's a gorgeous piece of kit right there.
There's a quick story, if I could.
That's what I wanted to hear. I was just about to ask, like, where?
How he got it.
It's fantastic. I moved down from New York to Mississippi for 2 years, for 16 years, in 2001. I'm reading the Penny Saver, okay? This like throwaway thing that we get.
Mm-hmm.
And under used washing machine, it says Roland Jupiter 8, $1,500.
In the same post or what?
Pardon me?
Was it in the same post as the washing machine or just under it?
No, below the washing machine.
Okay.
And all this stuff. And I'm like, Jupiter 8, 15, what? And so I call it. No, and I've lived in Mississippi all of about 2 weeks, right? So from New York, and I'd never been to the South. So I call the number, and I go, hello. He goes, you want to buy the piano?
You want to buy the piano?
And I'm like,
piano, bro.
yeah. And I went, do you mean that the Jupiter? Yeah, the piano. Okay, well, meet me. There's a gas station just west of New Orleans on the 10. Meet me there at 9:30 tonight. And I'm like,
by the way, folks, this is not a MAGA cap, just in case.
Oh, no,
yeah, I hear you.
That's the old black baseball team, but Kansas City. But so I pack up my fiance, which is my wife of 16 years now. And she's from Brooklyn. I'm from LA. We've never been in the South. We've been there 2 weeks. Go down the 10. It is the foggiest night in the world off the 10. And after you get west, if anyone knows, out of New Orleans gas station. Yeah, I get to this gas station, and then there's a van with looked like they just on the back of the van. So I tell my wife to just stay in here, and if I scream, then take the car. And I walk up. Goes, that is what he opened it up to, and I'm like, okay, now. And I'm thinking to myself, Well, either I give them the 1500 and get shot and don't get anything, or I take my chances on giving them the 1500 and walking away very quickly. And lo and behold, that's, you know, we put Encore in it and all that stuff, and it works great. And, you know, and Brad worked on it because it's always nice to have a guy.
Oh man, so the video was hanging up a little bit, but I did get the majority of the story. And let me just say this: I would have risked getting shot as well. So,
Oh yeah, there you go. I'm right there.
I'm right there with you. Yeah, man, so we're getting a question of people asking, is there a possibility of maybe getting some Jupiter 8 samples into the SP2400?
That's something that we haven't talked about, isn't it? So a good few of those artists that you see on the page there are going to be doing. So there's some flash memory. There's a gigabit of flash memory built onto the board as well. And there are some of those guys that are on that list are going to be doing us some. I think yourself included, right? Are going to be.
Well, here's what I'm going to say about that.
Okay. Well, if you don't want to do it, don't want to do it.
No. I'm gonna present on air. I'm gonna present an opportunity. Okay, and here's what I'm gonna say. My recommendation is this. Okay, is I think that there should be like a pre-order limit, and if you reach this pre-order limit, I think we should include an SD card that has a fancy ass sample pack on it. And I myself, along with, I've got some great sound designer friends that will blow people's minds. I think that we could put together a sample pack specifically for the SP2400 that will shock people. But I think that if we're going to do it, there should be a reason for it. And I think it should be a celebration, because some of the people that I know, some of them are in the chat right now, I think would love to be involved on that, but I think it should be like a pre-order has reached X amount value, and we include an SD card that has a crap ton of amazement on it.
Well, I think we can do that, and probably I think that's a really great idea, and that's not a super expensive idea to pull off anyway, because SD cards aren't very expensive. So I would extend that to anyone that's involved in the pre-order round.
So a question that I see in here is from Toy. I don't know what the hell kind of name is that. Anyway, is who needs samples?
Is that not?
And I'll say this. You know who needs samples these days is people who don't have an entire studio and the time devoted to record amazing samples from it. So when you're asking who needs samples, everyone needs samples. Like, don't play that game with me. Like, you can sample from vinyl all day long, and guess what? You can give up your royalties all day long. But when you've got amazing sound designers with an amazing studio, it's worth its weight in gold. And I'll tell you, some of the cats that are in the chat room, I see some sound designers in the chat room right now who will blow your mind. And I'm not even talking about myself at all. I'm talking about other people that I see in the chat room right now are amazing sound designers. Mm-hmm. So if you haven't used amazing sample packs, maybe you don't know.
Yeah.
That's how I feel about it. So your site, islainstruments.com. Anything up there right now that people can check out?
Well, is this the end of the show?
Do you want it to be? I got a pot roast waiting.
Okay.
So,
yeah,
like,
so I've got a nice
years.
flat steak waiting for me. Father's Day steak waiting for me. It's cold now because she just finished it as we went on air.
Dude, same with me. My pot roast is up there, and same situation.
Oh, well, we've sacrificed our dinners together.
That's right.
While we were on the show, I've opened up pre-order.
Did you hear that, people?
Yeah, while we're on the show, so you can go to islainstruments.com and you can now pre-order the drum machine. Shipping is going to be December or January. You're going to see dates through the website and everything. So just know that this is a pre-order. That it's not going to ship and land on your doorstep on Wednesday. And we've set up a special coupon code that gives you $50 off because you were a part of the chat and you were watching the show. And that coupon is Flux302, right?
Which is also my Instagram handle. So go follow me on Instagram.
So if you use the coupon code Flux302 at checkout, that'll get you $50 off. And thank you very much for being part of the pre-order.
So I'm going to say this again. Get your mind right, people. Go to islainstruments.com/SP-2400. And dude, the pre-order's up there right now. Hold on. So Jabbar is saying it's not open. Let's double check. I'm going to double check it right now on mine.
Yeah, I'll post the link in here for people, but you can go navigate in the site. The only thing you can't do at the moment with that is use a firm, which is the monthly payments for it, because it's a pre-order. So,
but that's something that might be coming, or like after it's released.
Yeah. Oh no, it will be for sure. Yeah.
So I'm going to share this right now. And
it's not.
You guys see this? This is an SP2400 in my cart right now. 949 with the $50 off makes it 909, which is something interesting. That's an interesting number, right?
Yeah, I didn't notice that. Yeah. No, there's a couple of orders that have just come through already. So
it's working. If you go to islainstruments.com, look, I'm gonna navigate out. Check this out. This is which, by the way, the website looks fantastic. I know you put a lot of work in, so congrats.
I've got a friend in London that did a lot of work on that, and we've been slogging at it.
Products, SP2400. You click that, and then boom! Look at it rotating goodness. Oh my god! I stared at this thing
if you scroll down that page, you'll see that the current list of people that are confirmed so far as part of the beta testing crew. So that's where you see Ken Flix Pierce on there as well.
Flux. Damn it. Look at this Ski Beats guy over here, right here.
Yeah,
he's all like stink faced. What's
doing
going
dog face, isn't he?
and EA Ski over here. Look, it's so serious. What's going on there? And me, just like too pale to even have a camera.
Man at CNA pose.
Chaz over here. What is he smoking? We're gonna have to work on that. See what's going on there. Yeah. It's very cold where Dynamics is,
Yeah.
So
Florida.
Yeah. So again, I highly recommend people check out the webpage because there's great videos up here. The June progress videos up here. And if you want to look at how the unit is built right now, you see the two buttons on there. You see the two buttons above the pads. They're not overcrowded. The unit is big and fancy. Your power supply for the unit is inside of the unit. It's not a wall wart.
Yep, works internationally. 100 volts to 250 volts.
That's a question. Isn't it cheaper to do a wall wart?
Yeah, it's much cheaper. Yeah.
So then, why are you being so fancy?
Like I said, I'm building the machine and that might make it a bit more expensive than a $300 or $400 product, but it's a product that's going to be around still in 30 years time.
Yeah, so I bring this kind of stuff up because it's like there's little things that you'll see like that, like not having that big wall wart on the side. I
need to address a few questions that are going on in the chat. Yes, you're charged the full amount today by doing a pre-order. You are charged the full amount. The whole reason and the whole point of doing pre-orders is that obviously we need to raise the funds to get the tooling made to put this into production. So essentially, this is kind of like a Kickstarter. It's not my first rodeo. Obviously, the first time around with Corebots was a Kickstarter. They take quite an inordinate amount of money off of you for doing that, and then they transfer it to you via PayPal, which takes another percentage, and so on and so on. So I hope I've proved my integrity and my trustworthiness by delivering everybody's Corebots when they bought them. But yeah, you're paying the full price, and you'll be getting it December, January. But yeah, if we don't pre-order it, if nobody pre-orders it, then no one's getting an SP2400. It's that simple. Okay. So I needed to.
Yeah. So a couple of things about how pre-orders work, just so people know. And this isn't anything to slight you or anything else. I'm just saying pre-orders in general. if you've never done a pre-order before, be aware that sometimes pre-orders do slide in dates. I hope that doesn't happen with this, but you know, it's something that does happen. I'm currently a pre-order of a product right now, and I'm going to give it a shout out because I'm hype about it. The Vowan 2 is looking like, if you're a sound designer, it looks like a really cool product. So go check it out. It's been really low key. I haven't seen them advertise it anywhere, but it's called the Vowan 2, and basically it's up for pre-order right now, and it's a way of exciting metals, so that, and you can even play samples through metals that you're exciting. So it's, again, it's for sound designers. But like, that thing has slid in pre-order, and I'm not even freaking out. It's like $150 and I'm not freaking out. Vowand is what I said, theorist. It's by Paul Vo. If you ever seen the Moog guitar, the technology that was used to create the Moog guitar, which can like sustain and dampen strings individually, it's that guy. But he has a handheld thing called the Vowand. Anyway, really cool looking product, but I've been waiting and waiting and waiting for it, and I'm going to continue waiting for it until it comes out. So anyway, point being is that pre-orders can slide. Pre-order is a pre-order. It doesn't mean it's disappearing. It's just something that you need to be aware of. Another thing that you need to be aware of is that pre-orders do actually help the people that are creating products, because cash influx helps them put cash towards development and that sort of thing. So be aware, like, if you want to support a product, a pre-order is a good idea because it does help things move forward, you know. The coupon code for Flux to get that $909 price is Flux302, and capitalization doesn't matter. I tested it out myself and it does work. So in the coupon code, when you put it into your cart, you type in Flux302 and it'll be down to $909. So check that out. As of right now, we've talked about what we can talk about. As future updates for the SP2400 come, I'm going to do more of these interviews, so I'd recommend you subscribe and hit the bell thing so that, you know, it's notified. I'll be the first person to tell you. A lot of the times I'll say, hey, this interview is going live at this time.
Come and subscribe to me as well.
Listen, and it's fine. Like, it's all Brad's fault that the interview was supposed to be yesterday and that
It is my fault. I'm sorry.
But if you're a subscriber of my channel, you should be well aware that whenever I say something is going live at this time, it doesn't mean that it's real, because again, I'm not a professional influencer. I don't care about that shit. Like, I'm not a clickbait guy. Follow my show, click the whatever it's called, the awareness icon, the bell thing, whatever it is. As we do more interviews, you'll be notified about it, and we'll talk about more things that are happening, because there's a lot of things that are in discussion about the 2400 that may or may not happen. And if they get confirmed, this is where you're going to find out about it. So definitely check that out. Brad, does that sound about right to you without making you get too antsy?
No, that's fine. That's fine. Yeah. A firm is not available right now for pre-ordering because you can't set up a credit for something that's not in your hands within 21 days, I think. So that's why that's not there.
Oh, I have a question.
And I will also say is that, you know, for anyone, if you order and your situation changes between now and the time it's shipping, all you got to do is ask for a refund. No questions asked. Refunds always has been with Corebots. And it's
that's pretty impressive, man.
If you want to, well, you know, as long as, like, if we get 200 pre-orders and 198 people drop out on my refund, then I'm in trouble. But
no, but that is actually, like, I mean, not to sound like corny about it, but that's actually, like, I'll be the first person to tell you, I had a kid at 19 with special needs. He's autistic, and let me tell you, I've been there through rough times and good times, you know.
Yeah, situations change, and you're like, well, shit, I got a grand tied up in that. I could do with changing my mind on that. Up until the day it ships, if you want refund, that's fine. That's
really noble right there. And I'll also say this: so the SP2400 up for pre-order now. is
By the way, the Flux 302 coupon code is only going to be running for the next 24 hours, and that's off. And also, so for my pre-existing Corobot customers, I'll be emailing those guys separately because I need to add something to the form so that they can put their order number in. And they will be getting the previous Isla Instruments customers, as they should quite rightly, will be getting their units shipped to them first. If it wasn't for those guys supporting me with Corobot, then I wouldn't still be here, and neither would Isla Instruments wouldn't be here in the first place. So it's only fair in my mind that I look after my existing customers first. So they'll be top of the list for deliveries.
So people were saying, "Oh, thanks for the discount code Flux," and I just let them know. I said, "That's all Brad. One, I had nothing to do with what this thing costs or anything like that. And personally, I was like, I told Brad from day one, I was like, yo, it should be $12.99. So, like,
well, no, it is very likely to be a price somewhere up near that when it's when it's released. So pre-orders are cheaper because you need to get people to pre-order it to get the thing into production. So
people are asking, will pre-orders run out?
Not for a short while. Yeah, okay. I can't give you a specific date, but yeah, we can't run pre-orders right up until the day before we start shipping because that's not fair.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're open.
And you're hoping for like January?
I'm not hoping. Well, I'm being very forceful, aren't I, Bill? About we've got another. Like I said, the hardware, the CAD and everything is ready for manufacturing. Going straight to the sheet metal fabrication.
I gotta cut you off. So there is a valid question about this. So Corobot users, Corobot buyers are asking a question about how that'll be. Is that somebody had said and then retracted? I think I'm looking at it now. It looks like
yeah, I'm going to be doing a blanket email to pre-existing people with pre-existing conditions that have ordered from me before. I'm going to be emailing everyone that's a Corobot customer. I've got everybody's emails that's ever bought a Corobot from me. If you bought a Corobot directly from Isla Instruments, you're going to be getting an email from me soon. And it doesn't matter if you get that and order a Corobot in 3 days time, because you were an Isla Instruments customer before the 16th of June, you'll be in the first wave of deliveries, as long as you don't leave it like a month or something. If you want to get one and you're interested in ordering one, then do it when you get the email.
That's a serious point of interest, is the idea of first wave of delivery.
Well, it's just me saying thank you to the people that have got me to where I am today. Okay, so Kickstarter backers and Indiegogo backers and people that have bought from me since then. I'm here and I'm making an SP2400 because those guys have believed in me and been patient and waited for their Corobot.
Are the Isla t-shirts on your website for order? People
they will be soon if anyone wants to sport one. Yeah. For sure.
Nice. And so that's a nice point that you're talking about, is supporting people and getting products done. Can I ask you about, like, maybe in the States, like, are you employing people that are going to be building these units?
Yes, so they're going to be assembled in the USA, with the circuit boards being made overseas, and that's in Taiwan or China.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So, but final assembly happens in the US.
Yeah, that's important to me. I can go the full service and full turnkey solution overseas, but you don't really get to oversee much of it unless you want to go there and sit there and handhold. And I've got some good people that I trust here. I like keeping that sort of family aspect, and all we need to do is scale up by adding more people if we need to build more units in the same amount of time. So if we're building 1,000 SP2400s or something, then it's a no-brainer just to get 5 more people in to help you assemble them. But I'm still liking to get the final touch and look at a unit before it goes out the door. So I can't let go of that personal QC aspect yet. I still have to look at it myself.
Yeah, I mean, it's a nice thing because you're based in Florida, and we know that Florida's already got its craziness. So it's nice to see that you're sane and over there and keeping people out of our hair.
Yeah. Florida, man.
Florida. Yeah, man. So I'll close out the show. And again, if you go to Isla Instruments right now, you can actually pre-order an SP2400 right now. If you put in a coupon code of Flux302, you can actually get $50 off. That's gonna help get this whole thing done and make it happen. So that's pretty dope. I'm excited, man. I'm excited. The looper side of things is like a surprising thing that I think a lot of people aren't aware of. So I kind of want to rehash on that before we hop off the air. Like,
Yeah, well,
I'm ready to eat, don't get it twisted. But
that'll be 2 hours in it on its own, won't it? Yeah.
I didn't mention about like, so we had talked about the looper beforehand prior to our last interview, but I didn't want to really mention it because I was kind of like, is that really going to happen, or is it just like a bonus? And maybe it's going to happen, maybe it isn't. But I will say this: the layout of the SP2400 to a looper would be amazing. Like the physical layout to it, as far as like somebody who makes stuff loop based.
Well, that's how I saw
really
it. Yeah, it just lends itself to that workflow. It's there in front of you, isn't it? It looks like a looper.
Yeah, so I'm actually really hype about that, because even though like I love making sample based beats and all, the whole reason why I originally started with like all this modular stuff, and I've got like, you know, not just my turntables, but like my modular, my acoustic instruments, my acoustic drum sets, my guitars, all that kind of stuff, is because I want to be able to create music that like I'm not beholden to, you know, other people's royalty checks, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And using a looper live allows me to do that same sample based workflow, but not stop, you know?
Yeah.
And that's really dope. So I'm hoping that I can kind of blend the looper with the actual SP2400 mode and like save my loops and then import them into my SP2400 mode and then continue on, you know?
Yeah.
So make that happen.
Well, they're gonna be exclusively, well, they're not gonna be exclusively demoed necessarily with you, because I do like to put some little teaser videos up myself, but we'll definitely do all the in-depth chatting about that stuff with me and you.
Yeah, there's gonna be a lot of great stuff coming up. So again, I'm gonna close out the stream and I'll say to everybody, Isla Instruments, let me grab the link and I'm gonna see if I can post it in the chat. I don't know if you're allowed to post
best to do the one that's going straight to the product page.
Well, that's what I'm doing. That's what I'm doing. I'm trying to see if it so
there you
that
go.
right there should work. And if you click on that, again, just to remember, if you go into the coupon code, like once you add it to your cart, you go to the coupon code, it'll be like below the unit. And I'll actually show it on my screen real quick so that people can see what I'm talking about. And if you can make it happen, do it. Check this out, right? So if you're here, right, you can click buy it now, which there you go, right? And if you look, you can see the number pad is right there on it. This is like the latest render, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So, oh, somebody was asking about these buttons, the transparency of the buttons or something. Like, what was the question about that? Did you see that?
Yeah. So there is actually going to be one small change on those buttons, because they are a bit white. And what I'm doing is there's an option on the caps that they're going to be smoked.
Okay.
So what it is, you got like a plunger type, and then there's a white square cap. They're the same sorts of switches that you get in like AV, video consoles and stuff like that in production environments.
Yeah.
Because you can take the clear cap comes off the top, and you can put an insert in there, which would be what you get on mixing consoles and stuff, which is what those numbers that are printed on the numpads, they're actually inserts. So you take the clear top of the switch off, put the insert in, and then you put the clear insert back over the top. And so I am getting those done in a more smoked plastic, so they're a bit closer to the grey of the rest of the body.
No neon green.
Look, fuck your neon green.
Yo, people hate on neon green so much. Yeah. I'm like, yeah, why do you hate it? I love it. So you say, yeah. So the buttons are gonna look good enough, and then you go to the cart. Here's the cart. Coupon code goes right here, and look at that, Flux 302, and then boom, you get 909. That's pretty dope. That's sub $1,000, like we talked about.
Subliminal, isn't it?
What's that?
Subliminal messaging going on.
Damn
Subliminal
right.
messaging going on there.
Dude,
Isn't
if you can't rock with 909, what's wrong with you?
It's a perfect price,
right? So, I just want to say, again, I thank you, Brad, for coming on and being open about
payment plans are not in operation for pre-orders for the SP2400. They're only for Corebots, and actually the Affirm is not completely set up, but I have to leave it like that open for them to come and do a review of it, which is why it's there. But it's not available for the SP2400 right at the moment anyway, until I get the go ahead from them. Sorry.
So yeah, one last question about the screen, because I saw you comment about you haven't found a red OLED screen
Yeah,
yet.
it's probably going to be a white screen. Yeah, I really liked it being red, but it's really scarce and people don't seem to want to manufacture it, so there must be a reason.
I will say this: I've been involved in products recently, and
it's definitely an OLED though. It makes so much different being an OLED.
I've seen screens go end of life, and that can be a nightmare. So
exactly,
yeah, in my opinion, it's like, well, red's cool because it doesn't hurt your night vision or whatever if you're in a club, but at the same time, it's like white versus going end of life and then people having a serious problem. I'd rather, and
you can always do gels and stuff like that,
What's that?
Use a gel insert on it or something like that, but we'll see. I don't think that's like a be all and end all problem.
Yeah. So just keep in mind that the render is a render, and things may change over the course of time, but at the end of the day, you're going to get.
There's certainly only going to be subtle changes over what you see.
I can guarantee you that if I'm involved, if anything changes that I'm like, no, I don't like it, I will scream and shout, and Brad knows this. So yeah. You've experienced that in minimal. But I'll say this, there were some people asking about the bit rate and all that kind of stuff. That stuff was covered on previous episodes of these interviews, but I'll just say that there are two modes currently: a 24-bit 48K high res and a 12-bit 26.04 kilohertz low res, which is the classic SP1200 sound engine. So if you're curious about, like, hey, does this thing have that sound engine of the old SP1200? That is there. And when if you go watch the OG versus the current video, you'll notice that, like, oh my god, like the difference between the two is very hard to tell. And if you can tell it, you can't tell it in the mix.
Yeah.
Can I
go and eat my steak now?
Yep, we're done. Hey, listen,
we've been offline for the past hour.
I made you wait long. So listen, happy Father's Day to everybody. And if anybody has any questions, you can get it Brad on Facebook and through.
We're pretty responsive. I've also got David Noller from Dynamics 2 is part of the team now as well, and he's doing a really good job of support and getting back to people on Facebook and stuff like that. So it's not just me, so you tend to get answers quicker these days.
Yeah, and when people ask me questions that I don't feel like I'm under NDA to not answer, I'll answer them. You know what I mean? So if you hit me up, I'm pretty cool to be nice about the situation. Just don't ask me bullshit that's already been answered in previous interviews, because I don't want to waste my time with stuff that I've already specifically told you. So be nice to me and I'll be nice to you.
Yeah. Awesome.
All right. Hey, thanks again. And Isla Instruments, coupon code Flux302. Peace.